If you are reading this, you've probably tried every trick in the book to get motivated. Maybe you've made new schedules, promised yourself to finally buckle down, or even tried deleting every distracting app on your phone, only to find yourself back in the same loop, intending to work, but craving something, anything, other than studying. You are not alone, and you are not broken. What if, instead of fighting a daily battle against distraction, you could train your brain to actually want to study? Imagine if opening your textbook gave you the same little jolt of anticipation as checking your notifications, or if you found yourself pulled back to your work by habit, not just pushed by guilt. That is not a fantasy, it's a matter of wiring, and wiring can be changed. This book is not about mustering more willpower, shaming yourself for being lazy, or swallowing the same old advice to just focus. It's a manual for rewiring the craving machinery in your brain so that studying can compete and even win in the attention auction that runs your daily life. Here, we'll dismantle the myths that have kept you stuck, from the idea that distraction is a personal failing to the belief that deep focus is reserved for monks and superhumans. We'll see why your brain chooses high-intensity apps over low-reward tasks like homework, and, more importantly, how to flip that script. Inside these pages, you'll find tools rooted in psychology, behavioral design, and real-world testing. You'll learn how to hack the reward system that currently runs on autopilot and build loops that make studying addictive, using the same principles that keep you coming back to your favorite games and social feeds. You'll experiment with micro-rewards, gamified progress, craving loops, and visible wins. Not because you need a gimmick, but because this is how your brain naturally learns what to crave. None of this is instant. There will be friction, withdrawal, even moments where silence feels unbearable. But if you stick with the process, the world that once felt too loud and chaotic will start to quiet. The itch to escape your work will fade, replaced by an undercurrent of anticipation, the same feeling you get when you're about to check what's new, only now it's working for you, not against you. If you've ever blamed yourself for not trying hard enough, if you felt your confidence slip as you broke promises to yourself, or if you simply want to build a mind that works for you in an age designed to distract, this book is for you. You are about to reclaim your attention, one craving at a time. The tools you need are here. The only thing left is to begin. Chapter 1: Hidden Problem. You are currently losing a war you did not even know you were fighting. It happens every time you sit down at your desk. You open your laptop or your textbook, intending to work for 2 hours. You have the time. You have the intelligence. You even have the desire to do well. But within minutes, a familiar itch starts at the base of your skull. Your hand moves almost on its own, reaching for your phone. Just a quick check. Just one notification. Just one video. Suddenly, 40 minutes are gone. The guilt sets in. You try to force yourself back to the material, but the words swim on the page. The text feels dry, heavy, and impossibly boring. You feel like you are fighting gravity. You wonder why you cannot just sit still and do the work like other people seem to do. You wonder if you are just lazy, or if you lack the discipline required to succeed. Let me be clear right now. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are simply outgunned. You are living in an environment that has been engineered to destroy your focus, and you are trying to fight back with tools that are 50 years out of date. This chapter is your wake-up call. We are going to strip away the myths about willpower and discipline that have been making you feel like a failure. We are going to look at the mechanics of why you scroll instead of study. By the end of this chapter, you will understand that your struggle is not a moral failing, it is a wiring problem, and wiring can be fixed. The highest bidder owns your attention. Imagine standing in the middle of a chaotic auction house. You are the item up for bid, but the auctioneers are not bidding for your body, they are bidding for your eyes. On one side of the room, you have a team of the world's smartest engineers, behavioral psychologists, and data scientists. They work for the apps on your phone. They have billion-dollar budgets and algorithms designed to predict exactly what will keep you staring at a screen for 5 more seconds. They offer bright colors, sudden noises, social validation, and endless novelty. They are screaming for your attention, and they are paying in immediate dopamine. On the other side of the room sits your textbook. It is quiet. It is static. It offers no immediate reward. It demands effort now for a payoff that might not come for months in the form of a grade or a degree. In this auction, your brain is the judge, and your brain has a default setting. It sells to the highest bidder. Right now, the apps are bidding high and fast. Studying is bidding low and slow. It is not a fair fight. It is a slaughter. This is the reality of the attention economy. Your attention is a commodity that is being bought and sold, and right now, studying is losing the auction by design. When you try to study in this environment without a system, you are bringing a knife to a nuclear war. The reason you feel a magnetic pull away from your work is not because you are weak. It is because your reward system is functioning exactly as it evolved to function. It chases the strongest signal. The problem is that the modern world has created signals so bright and loud that they drown out everything else. Why just try harder is a trap. For years, you have likely been told that the solution to this problem is willpower. Teachers, parents, and perhaps even your own internal monologue have repeated the same advice. Just focus. Just put the phone away. Just try harder. This is the willpower myth, and it is responsible for more academic failure and self-loathing than any other lie. Willpower is not a character trait that you either have or do not have. Willpower is a battery. It is a finite resource. Every time you resist the urge to check a notification, you drain the battery. Every time you force your attention back to a boring paragraph, you drain the battery. If you rely solely on willpower to study, you are fighting a losing battle against your own biology. You might win for an hour, you might win for a day, but eventually the battery dies. When it does, you collapse. You binge on distractions, not because you want to, but because your brain is desperate for the dopamine you have been denying it. The approach we will take in this book is different. We are not going to ask you to white-knuckle your way through misery. We are going to look at the environment and the wiring itself. We are going to stop blaming the driver and start fixing the engine. You do not need to be a monk to succeed. You need to be a designer. You need to understand that you are currently miswired for the task at hand, and you are underarmed for the environment you live in. Once you accept this, you can stop beating yourself up and start building a system that actually works. The silent killer of your potential. The cost of this constant battle is higher than you think. It is not just about a few wasted hours here and there. It is about the fragmentation of your mind. When you constantly switch tasks, glancing at a text, then reading a sentence, then checking an email, you are killing your ability to think deeply. This is the hidden cost of fragmentation. Research shows that it takes over 20 minutes to regain deep focus after a distraction. If you are interrupted every 10 minutes, you are never actually focused. You are skimming the surface of your potential. This shallow focus feels normal to you because it is frequent. You have forgotten what it feels like to be truly immersed in a complex problem for 2 hours without looking up. But the consequences are severe. Over time, this inability to focus caps your performance. You might be intelligent, but intelligence without focus is like a Ferrari without wheels. It has a powerful engine, but it isn't going anywhere. If you continue on this path, the gap between your potential and your performance will widen. You will see peers who are less intelligent than you outperform you, simply because they can sit still and execute. You will become smart, but replaceable. The world rewards those who can master hard things quickly, and you cannot master hard things in 3-minute bursts. The erosion of your identity. There is a deeper, more painful cost to this cycle. It damages your identity. Every time you tell yourself, I will start studying at 5 p.m., and then look up to find it is 8 p.m. and you haven't started, you are breaking a promise to yourself. When you break a promise to a friend, they stop trusting you. When you break a promise to yourself, you stop trusting yourself. You begin to internalize the idea that you are the kind of person who cannot follow through. You start to believe that you are naturally lazy, disorganized, or incapable. This identity drift is poison. It bleeds into every area of your life. It affects your confidence in your career, your relationships, and your future. Imagine looking back 5 years from now. Imagine the regret of knowing you missed opportunities, not because you weren't capable, but because you couldn't control your own attention. Regret is rarely about a lack of talent. It is almost always about wasted potential. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. We are going to use that potential regret as fuel to change your trajectory right now. The blueprint for addiction. Here is the good news. The same machinery in your brain that makes you addicted to apps can be used to make you addicted to studying. This book is a manual for hacking your own reward system. We are going to take the psychological principles that casinos and video games use against you, and we are going to use them for your benefit. We are not aiming for begrudging discipline. We are aiming for craving. We want to reach a point where opening your book feels as natural and satisfying as opening your favorite app. To do this, we will follow a specific sequence. First, we must address the wiring. In the upcoming chapters, specifically reward wiring and stimulus detox, we will lower your boredom ceiling. We will reset your brain's sensitivity so that ordinary tasks stop feeling painful. You cannot enjoy a subtle flavor if you have been eating nothing but pure sugar. We have to clear the palate. Once the wiring is addressed, we will build momentum. We will install what I call a craving loop. This is a psychological structure involving a cue, a tiny action, and a reward that makes starting automatic. We will combine this with tiny wins and study game mechanics to create a feedback loop of progress. You will learn to track your focus in a way that releases dopamine, turning the act of studying into a game you want to win. Finally, we will lock this in with a protocol that ensures you can do this for life. We will move from the struggle of "I should study" to the anticipation of "I can't wait to get back to it." First wiring, then performance. You might be wondering why we don't just jump straight to study tips and speed reading techniques. The reason is simple. You cannot drive a broken car fast. If your reward system is hijacked, no amount of study technique will save you. You will just be a more efficient procrastinator. We must fix the wiring before we demand performance. This is why the early parts of this book focus on the psychology of reward and the biology of stimulation. We have to lower the friction before we increase the speed. This approach might feel slower at first. You might want to fix everything overnight. But winners understand that you scale what works gradually. We are building a foundation. If you try to build a skyscraper on a swamp, it will sink. We are draining the swamp first. Pick your side. Ultimately, this comes down to a choice. There are two attitudes you can take toward this problem. The loser attitude is passive. It says, "I'll start when I feel motivated." It says, "This is just how I am." It looks at the distracted world and says, "Well, everyone else is scrolling, so it must be okay." This attitude leads to a life of mediocrity, stress, and low-level anxiety. It leads to being a consumer of other people's creations rather than a creator of your own life. The winner attitude is active. It says, "My attention is my most valuable asset, and I will train it like a muscle." It says, "If others can rewire their habits, so can I." It realizes that you do not need perfect conditions, you need a working system. You have to decide right now. Are you going to be a passive victim of the attention economy, letting algorithms dictate what you think and do, or are you going to take control of the control panel? This path requires effort, but so does the path of regret. The difference is that the effort of discipline yields a return with interest. The effort of regret yields nothing but shame. The hidden lever. You have the map. You know the stakes. You know that your brain is currently being sold to the highest bidder, and you know that you have the power to buy it back. But knowing the problem is not enough. You need to understand the mechanism. You need to understand exactly how your brain decides what is boring and what is fun, and how to trick that decision-making process. There is a specific biological reason why a 3-minute video feels better than 3 minutes of reading, and it has nothing to do with the content of the video. It has to do with a prediction error in your neurons. If you can learn to manipulate this prediction error, you can change what you crave. You can make the difficult feel easy. You can make the boring feel electric. The switch is hidden deep in your reward circuitry, and most people go their whole lives without ever finding it. They push against the door marked pull for decades. In the next chapter, we are going to stop pushing. We are going to find the handle. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Reward Wiring. You are sitting there, staring at a page of text and you feel nothing. Actually, that is not true. You feel a dull, heavy resistance. It feels like you are trying to push a boulder up a hill with your bare hands. Meanwhile, your phone is sitting 3 feet away, and even though the screen is black, it feels like it is vibrating with energy. You know that if you pick it up, you will feel something immediately. Relief, amusement, connection, a spark. Why does the phone feel like a spark and the book feel like a stone? Most people will tell you it is because you lack passion or discipline. They are wrong. The difference has nothing to do with your character and everything to do with speed. Your brain is an efficiency machine designed to survive, and in the deep, primitive circuits of your mind, survival looks like immediate feedback. The phone offers a reward in milliseconds. The book offers a reward in months. In a fair fight, the months never win. This chapter is about rigging the fight. We are going to stop wishing for a different brain and start designing for the one you actually have. We are going to look at the mechanics of why you are obsessed with quick hits, and then we're going to hotwire your system so that learning starts to compete on the same playing field. You are not going to force yourself to hate the phone. You are going to train yourself to get that same spark from the work. Stop blaming the driver, fix the engine. For years, you have likely looked at your inability to study as a personal defect. You tell yourself you are lazy. You look at high achievers and assume they were born with a gene that makes them enjoy reading dense PDFs. You assume they have a moral superiority that you lack. We need to kill that assumption right now. It is useless and it is false. When you judge yourself for craving distraction, you are adding shame to the problem. Shame is a terrible fuel for performance. It burns hot and fast, and it leaves you exhausted. Instead of judging the craving, I want you to look at it like a mechanic looks at a car that won't start. It is not a moral failure. It is a mechanical reality. Your wiring favors fast hits because it was trained to favor fast hits. If you eat sugar all day, an apple tastes like cardboard. If you scroll through 15-second videos all day, a chapter of history feels like a coma. This is not because the history is objectively boring. It is because your sensitivity has been blasted away by high-contrast stimuli. Winners do not rely on being better people. They build systems that respect this biology. They know that if they want to study, they have to make studying feel rewarding now, not later. They move from blame to design. The time travel problem. To understand why you procrastinate, you have to understand a concept called temporal discounting. This is a fancy way of saying that your brain does not trust the future. A reward delivered right now is worth 100% of its value to your brain. A reward delivered in a week is worth maybe 50%. A reward delivered in a year, like a degree, a job offer, or the pride of mastery, is worth almost nothing to your primitive limbic system in the heat of the moment. It is too abstract. It's a ghost. The apps on your phone know this. They are engineered to exploit this bias. They do not promise you a laugh next week. They promise it now. They use variable rewards. Sometimes you get a like, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you see a funny video, sometimes it's news, to keep your dopamine neurons firing in anticipation. This is called dopamine hijacking. They have created a loop of novelty, surprise, and validation that hooks you exactly like a slot machine. Textbooks and study guides are terrible at this. They are predictable. They are slow. They require high effort for a payoff that is invisible in the moment. When you sit down to study, you are asking your brain to trade a guaranteed pile of cash, the phone, for a lottery ticket that might pay out in 5 years, the study session. Of course you feel resistance. But here is the secret. You can trick the system. You can artificially attach immediate rewards to long-term tasks. You can learn to pull the future closer so it feels real, and you can embed micro-rewards into the study process itself. We are going to turn the ghost of the future into something you can touch today. Lies you tell yourself about discipline. Before we get to the tactics, we have to clear out 3 myths that are likely clogging up your mental hard drive. The first is the willpower myth. You think the solution is just to clench your teeth harder, but willpower is a battery, and it drains with every decision you make. If you are using willpower to fight a high-stimulation environment, you will lose. The environment always wins in the long run. You do not need to try harder. You need to design smarter. The second is the misery myth. Somewhere along the line, you internalize the idea that studying is supposed to be miserable. You think that if you are not suffering, you are not working. This is nonsense. There are people who genuinely love the process of learning, not because they are masochists, but because they have associated the sensation of figuring it out with pleasure. If you believe studying must be painful, you will subconsciously avoid it forever. The third is the passion myth. You tell yourself, if I just loved this subject, I would be motivated. This gets the order backward. Motivation is rarely the cause of action. It is the result of action. You do not study because you are motivated. You get motivated because you studied, made progress, and felt good about it. Competence creates passion. You have to build the loop first, and the feelings will follow. Architecting your dopamine. Now we move to the practical application. How do we actually rewire the system? It starts with mapping your current landscape. You need to identify what you are currently using for quick hits. Is it social media, video games, texting? Identify the trigger and the reward. What are you actually getting from it? Usually it is one of 3 things: novelty, seeing something new, escape, forgetting stress, or validation, feeling important. Your goal is to design your study sessions to offer a microdose of these same things. We do this by engineering tiny wins. You must stop trying to study for 2 hours. 2 hours is an eternity to a dopamine-starved brain. Instead, you're going to break your work into tiny, winnable chunks. I mean ridiculously small. Completing 1 math problem, reading 1 page, writing 1 paragraph. Here is the critical part. You must celebrate that tiny win immediately. I do not mean you go buy yourself a gift. I mean a psychological celebration. When you finish that 1 problem, you need to physically tick a box, nod your head, and say to yourself, good. You need to take a second to feel the satisfaction of closure. This sounds trivial, but it is neurological magic. You are manually injecting a small spike of dopamine right after the effort. You are teaching your brain, effort equals reward, not in 10 years, now. You also need to pull the future closer. Before you start a session, do not just open the book. Take 30 seconds to read a short, emotionally charged description of why you are doing this. Write down exactly what you want. I am doing this so I can walk into that exam room with 0 fear. I am doing this so I can build a career that gives me freedom. Read it. Feel it. Make the long-term reward vivid and bright, just for a moment, so it can compete with the glowing screen in your pocket. Visual proof and the power of that counted. To make this stick, you need to make your progress visible. The brain loves to see a pile grow. Create a simple visual tracker. It can be a grid on a piece of paper or a series of empty circles. Every time you complete a focused block, even if it is just 15 minutes, you fill in a square. You color it in. This visual act serves as a receipt for your brain. It is proof that you did something. When you look at a filled grid, you get a hit of pride. That pride is dopamine. You are hacking your own chemistry. You must also learn to reward effort, not just outcomes. Maybe you studied for an hour and you still do not understand the concept. The old you would feel like a failure, The new you knows that the win was showing up. You need to say out loud, "That counted." You proved you could sit there and try. That is the behavior we are reinforcing. The understanding will come later, but the habit of showing up must be rewarded now. Keep it simple. Do not build a complex spreadsheet that takes 20 minutes to update. The more complex your tracking system, the less likely you are to use it. A pen and a piece of paper are the best tools you have. From resistance to addiction. When you start doing this, do not expect fireworks on day one. You are retraining a deep biological pathway. At first, the good outcome is simply reduced resistance. You will sit down, and the internal screaming will be a little quieter. You will negotiate with yourself less. You will start to associate the study block with that small moment of satisfaction when you check the box. As you continue, you will hit the excellent outcome. You will start to feel genuine enjoyment in the click. You know that feeling when a concept suddenly makes sense? That aha moment? That is pure dopamine. By stripping away the distractions and focusing on the tiny wins, you make space to actually feel that click. You start to chase that feeling. Eventually, you reach the best outcome. This is the state of craving. You will feel off balance if you have not filled in your box for the day. You will feel a pull toward your desk because your brain knows that is where the satisfaction lives. You will not be pushing yourself to study. You will be pulled by the anticipation of the win. Where the system breaks. There are 3 traps that can ruin this rewiring process. The first is overcomplicating the system. You get excited and design a massive point system with complex rules. You will abandon this in 3 days. Simplicity is the soul of consistency. One visual tracker, one simple rule. Every focus block earns a mark. That is it. The second trap is rewarding distraction. This is subtle. You sit down to study, you procrastinate for 20 minutes, then you work for 5 minutes and you tell yourself, "Good job." No, you must be strict with the criteria. The reward is for focused work. If you break focus to check your phone, the timer resets. You only get the tick on the page if the block was clean. If you reward mixed efforts, you will breed mixed habits. The third trap is forgetting to use the rewards. You think, "I'm an adult. I don't need to check a box." Yes, you do. You are an adult, but your limbic system is a primitive animal. It needs the treat. It needs the signal. If you stop giving the immediate feedback, the brain will drift back to the things that do give immediate feedback. Your phone. The noise floor. We have talked about how to add rewards to studying. We have talked about boosting the signal of the good behavior. But there is another side to this equation. Imagine you're trying to listen to a whisper in a room where a heavy metal band is playing. You can try to shout the whisper louder. That is what we just discussed with reward wiring. But it would be much easier if you just turned down the volume of the band. Right now, your brain is deaf to the subtle pleasures of learning because the noise floor of your life is too high. You are overstimulated. You are numb. Even with the best reward wiring in the world, if your baseline for stimulation is set to maximum chaos, studying will always feel flat. To make the wiring stick, we have to lower the ceiling of your boredom. We have to reset your sensitivity. We have to go through a process that will feel uncomfortable at first, but will eventually give you a superpower that almost no one else has. We need to talk about the silence. Chapter 3, Stimulus Detox. You are drowning in noise, even when the room is completely silent. You might be sitting in a quiet library or an empty room, but your brain is screaming. It is processing the aftershocks of 1,000 notifications, videos, headlines, and colorful images you consumed in the last 3 hours. You feel a buzzing anxiety, a restless energy that makes it physically painful to sit still and look at a static page of text. You try to read, but your eyes slide off the page. You feel an almost magnetic pull to reach for your pocket, to check something, anything, just to stop the hum. This is not a lack of discipline. This is a physiological state. You are overstimulated. In the last chapter, we talked about adding rewards to your studying to make it more appealing. But there is a fatal flaw in that plan if we do not address the environment your brain lives in. Imagine trying to enjoy a subtle, complex piece of classical music while a jackhammer is tearing up the pavement 5 feet away. It does not matter how beautiful the music is, you cannot hear it. The jackhammer is simply too loud. Right now, your digital life is the jackhammer. Studying is the classical music. If you want to hear the music, you do not need to buy better speakers. You need to stop the jackhammer. This chapter is about the noise floor. We are going to lower the volume of your life so that studying stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like a relief. We are going to reset your sensitivity through a process called stimulus detox. It is not about becoming a monk. It is about reclaiming your ability to feel interested in things that do not explode every 3 seconds. The invisible wall of tolerance. To understand why you cannot focus, you have to understand the concept of reward tolerance. Your brain is an adaptive machine. It constantly calibrates itself to the level of stimulation it receives. If you spend your day blasting your nervous system with high-intensity, fast-switching content, short videos, intense games, rapid-fire messaging, your brain adjusts its baseline. It decides that this high level of chaos is normal. This creates what I call the boredom ceiling. Everything above the ceiling feels interesting. Everything below the ceiling feels excruciatingly dull. When you have spent the morning on social media, your boredom ceiling is sky high. Studying, which is slow, monochromatic, and quiet, falls way below that ceiling. It does not just feel boring, it feels invisible. Your brain literally cannot register it as a viable activity because it does not provide the requisite jolt of electricity. This is why just focusing feels impossible. You are asking a brain that has been calibrated for a Formula One race to suddenly enjoy a slow walk in the park. The contrast is too high. The drop in stimulation triggers a panic response. You feel agitated not because the work is hard, but because your brain is going into withdrawal from the high-intensity inputs it has grown to expect. We have to lower that ceiling. We have to bring your baseline down so that the boring work of studying actually registers on your radar again. The agitation is the medicine. When you first cut the noise, you are going to feel terrible. I want to be upfront about this so you do not panic when it happens. You will sit in silence and you will feel an intense itch. You will feel restless. Your leg will bounce. Your mind will race, looking for something to latch onto. You will have a sudden, urgent feeling that you are missing out on something important or that you need to check your email right now. Most people interpret this feeling as I can't focus or I am bored. They treat it as a signal to stop. You must reframe this immediately. This agitation is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the detox is working. It is the feeling of your brain recalibrating. It is exactly like the physical withdrawal a person feels when they quit caffeine. The headache proves the dependency. The restlessness proves the overstimulation. If you run from this feeling, you stay trapped. If you sit with it, you break the loop. You have to learn to view this discomfort as a necessary bridge. You are crossing from the land of the jackhammer to the land of the quiet. The bridge is shaky, but it is the only way across. The myths of the multitasker. You might be telling yourself that you are different. You might believe the myth that you are a high-energy person who needs chaos to function. You tell yourself that having the TV on, music blasting, and your phone open helps you work. This is a lie your addiction tells you to keep itself alive. There is a difference between chosen stimulation and compulsive stimulation. If you cannot sit in a room alone for 15 minutes without panicking, you are not high energy. You are dependent. You are using noise to drown out your own thoughts and the difficulty of the work. You cannot outgrind a hijacked nervous system. You cannot stack more effort on top of a brain that is vibrating with digital residue. Another myth is that detox means you have to quit everything forever. You think I am asking you to throw your phone in the ocean and live in a cabin. That is not the goal. The goal is a reset, not permanent deprivation. You can still use high-stimulation tools, but you need to be the master of them, not the victim. You need to be able to turn the noise down when it is time to work. We are looking for control, not abstinence. the zero stimulation protocol. So how do we actually lower the ceiling? We do it with the micro detox block. This is a non-negotiable window of time, usually 10 to 20 minutes, where you consume absolutely zero external input. No phone, no music, no podcasts, no reading, no talking. You simply exist. You can sit in a chair and stare at the wall. You can lie on the floor. You can take a slow walk without headphones. You can tidy your desk in silence. The activity does not matter as long as it is low intensity and involves no screens or information consumption. The placement of this block is critical. You must schedule it directly before your study session. This is the secret weapon. Think about the contrast. If you go from playing a video game straight to studying, the study session feels like a punishment. The drop in dopamine is massive. But if you place a 20-minute bore block in the middle, everything changes. During the detox, your brain screams for stimulation. It is starving for input. It gets bored out of its mind. By the time the 20 minutes are up, your boredom ceiling has crashed down. You are desperate for something to do. At that moment, you open your textbook. Suddenly, the book is not boring work. It is a source of stimulation. It is something to do. Compared to staring at a wall, solving a math problem feels engaging. You have used the silence to reset your baseline, making the work feel like a relief rather than a chore. Executing the reset. To make this work, you need to treat the micro-detox as a contract. Use a timer. Set it for 15 minutes. Tell yourself, I am not allowed to consume any information until this timer rings. When the urge to check your phone hits, and it will hit hard, do not fight it with anger. Just label it. Say to yourself, I am feeling an urge. Acknowledge it like a cloud passing in the sky and let it float by. Do not grab the phone. Just watch the feeling. Notice that the urge rises like a wave, peaks, and then eventually crashes and fades. Every time you ride out an urge without acting on it, you are lowering your threshold. You are regaining a tiny piece of your freedom. If sitting still is too difficult at first, choose a simple companion activity. Fold laundry, wash a few dishes, walk around the block. These tasks keep your hands busy, but leave your mind understimulated. They are perfect for the reset. But be careful not to sneak in entertainment. No background TV. The silence is the point. The boredom is the tool. From agitation to clarity. If you commit to this, you will notice a shift within a few days. The first few sessions will be a battle against your own impulses. You will feel time stretching out, seconds ticking by, like hours. But then, something clicks. You will finish a detox block and feel a strange, cool clarity wash over you. The buzzing in your head will stop. You will sit down to study, and instead of fighting to focus, you will simply focus. Your attention will stick to the page. The words will seem sharper. You will be able to hold a complex thought in your head without it shattering. This is the excellent outcome. You have neutralized the overstimulation. You have created a fair fight for your attention. Eventually, you might even reach the best outcome, where you treat quiet as a weapon. You will start to crave these moments of silence because you know they are the source of your power. You will look at your distracted peers, constantly checking their feeds, and you will see them not as connected, but as weakened. You will know that you have an edge because you are the only one who can turn the volume down. The trap of the rebound. There is one major pitfall you must avoid, the rebound binge. Some people treat the detox as a holding of breath. They white-knuckle through the 15 minutes of silence, and then, the second the timer goes off, they grab their phone and scroll furiously for 10 minutes as a reward. Do not do this. This defeats the entire purpose. You are trying to bridge into studying, not back into chaos. The rule is simple. The detox ends when the study session begins. There is no gap. The moment the timer rings, you pick up the pen. You open the document. You channel that built-up hunger for stimulation directly into the work. If you rebound into high-stimulation entertainment, you send your boredom ceiling shooting back up, and you have to start all over again. Also, be careful not to treat this as a punishment. If you sit there thinking, I am doing this because I am bad and I need to suffer, you will build resentment. Reframe it. You are an athlete warming up. You are a musician tuning your instrument. This is a performance protocol, not a penalty. The silence is not empty. We have fixed the wiring in Chapter 2, teaching you to add rewards. Now, in Chapter 3, we have cleared the noise, teaching you to subtract stimulation. You have a brain that is ready to work and an environment that allows you to focus. But there is still a missing piece. You can have a great engine and a clear road, but you still need an ignition switch. You cannot rely on deciding to start every single day. Decisions are heavy. They require willpower, and as we know, willpower is a battery that runs out. We need to take the decision out of your hands. We need to build a mechanism that makes starting automatic, a psychological trigger that bypasses your hesitation and pulls you into the work before you even realize what is happening. We need to stop waiting for the mood to strike and start building a loop that strikes for us. We need to talk about the craving loop. Chapter 4, Craving Loop. You wake up with a plan. You tell yourself that today is the day you will finally crush that pile of work. You set a mental appointment. I will start studying at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. arrives. You look at the clock. You feel a sudden wave of heaviness. You think, I'll just get a glass of water first. Then you think, I need to check my email quickly. Then, 4:15 is a cleaner time to start. By 4:30, you are exhausted and you haven't even opened a book. This is the daily motivation fight. It is a negotiation you hold with yourself every single day, and it is draining your battery before you even fire a shot. The problem is not that you are lazy. The problem is that you are treating every study session as a unique decision. You are asking your brain, do you want to work now? And your brain, designed to conserve energy, will always answer no. We need to stop asking the question. We need to remove the option to say no. We are going to take the decision out of your hands and hand it over to a mechanism that runs on autopilot. We are going to install a craving loop, the autopilot of high performers. If you look at the most consistent people in the world, top athletes, prolific writers, successful students, you will notice something strange. They do not seem to struggle with starting. They do not pace around the room debating whether to practice. They just do it. This is not because they have more willpower than you. It is because they have stopped making decisions. They have installed a neurological loop that triggers behavior automatically. They do not rely on feeling like it. They rely on a sequence: cue, action, reward, anticipation. Without a loop, you are a leaf blowing in the wind of your own moods. With a loop, you are a train on a track. The destination is fixed, and once the engine starts, the movement is inevitable. We are going to build that track for you right now. The anatomy of addiction. To build a study habit that feels like an addiction, we have to borrow the architecture of addiction. Your brain is wired to repeat behaviors that follow a specific pattern. It notices a trigger, performs an action, gets a reward, and then predicts that the reward will happen again next time. This is how social media hooked you. The notification ding is the cue. Opening the app is the action. The content is the reward. The urge to check it again 5 minutes later is the anticipation. We are going to hijack this machinery. We are going to build a loop where the cue is a specific time and place. The action is so small it is laughable. The reward is immediate, and the anticipation pulls you into tomorrow. This shifts the dynamic entirely. You stop pushing yourself to study. Instead, the loop pulls you in. You move from I should do this to I need to close the loop. The myth of the natural habit. You might be thinking that this sounds robotic. You might believe that real passion should feel natural, spontaneous, and inspired. You might think that if you have to engineer a loop to get yourself to study, it means you are faking it. Let me tell you the truth about natural. Natural is just a word for familiar. Nothing is natural the first time you do it. Walking wasn't natural. Reading wasn't natural. Driving a car felt like a chaotic mess of mirrors and pedals until one day it became automatic. If you wait for studying to feel natural before you build a system, you will wait forever. You do not need inspiration to start. This is the biggest lie in the creative and academic worlds. We think we need to feel inspired to take action. The reality is the opposite. Action creates inspiration. You have to move first. The feelings follow the movement. The loop is designed to force that first movement, regardless of how uninspired you feel. Step 1. The non-negotiable cue. The first part of your loop is the cue. This is the trigger. Right now, your trigger is probably vague, sometime in the evening, or when I finish dinner. Vague triggers lead to vague results. Your brain needs a sharp, clear signal that says we are entering the work mode. You need to anchor your study habit to a specific time and a specific place. It does not matter if it is 6 a.m. or 9 p.m., but it must be the same time every day for the next 30 days. You also need a physical start signal. This could be turning on a specific desk lamp. It could be putting on a specific pair of noise-canceling headphones. It could be placing your phone in a drawer. When the clock strikes the hour, you hit the signal. You do not think, you do not check your feelings, you just hit the signal. This is the contract. Step 2. The absurdly small action. Here is where most people fail. They trigger the cue, and then they stare at a mountain. They think, time to study for 3 hours. The brain looks at that mountain, feels the pain of the effort, and slams the brakes. We have to trick the brain. We need an entry point so low that you cannot possibly say no to it. Your action in the craving loop is not to study for an hour. It is to do something absurdly small. Open the book to page 1. Read a single paragraph. Write one sentence. Solve one equation. That is it. That's the whole requirement. If you do that, you have succeeded. You can stop if you want, but you won't. The physics of the mind are similar to the physics of matter. Static friction is higher than kinetic friction. It takes 10 times more energy to start moving than it does to keep moving. By setting the bar at one paragraph, you overcome the static friction. Once you are in motion, you will almost always keep going. But you must give yourself permission to start small. Step 3. The engineered reward. We talked about this in the wiring chapter, but it is the third pillar of the loop. You cannot let the action slide by unnoticed. If you finish your tiny action and immediately start worrying about how much is left to do, you are punishing yourself for starting. You must close the circuit. As soon as you complete that first paragraph or that first problem, you need a micro reward. Tick a box on your tracker. Say the words, loop active. Take a sip of your favorite coffee. It needs to be a split-second acknowledgement that you did what you said you would do. This tiny spike of satisfaction tells your basal ganglia, the habit center of your brain, that this loop is worth keeping. It reinforces the connection between the cue and the action. Step 4. The hook of anticipation. The final step is the one that makes the next day easier. It is the secret weapon of the craving loop. It is called the hook. TV shows end episodes on a cliffhanger for a reason. They want to create a curiosity gap that your brain is desperate to close. You can do the same thing for your studying. Never end a study session by just closing the book and walking away. That leaves your brain in a state of done. Instead, you want to leave your brain in a state of to be continued. At the end of your session, write down exactly what the very first step is for tomorrow. Leave a sentence half finished. Leave a problem set up but unsolved. Create a dangling thread. Then, take 30 seconds to visualize yourself sitting down tomorrow and finishing that specific easy task. This creates anticipation. Your brain hates open loops. It wants to close them. By leaving a hook, you are using your brain's natural desire for closure to pull you into the next session. Troubleshooting your loop. You will try this and you will stumble. That is fine. The system is flexible, but when you stumble, you need to know why. If you find yourself ignoring the cue, it is too weak. You are relying on memory instead of a trigger. Set an alarm. Put a sticky note on your computer screen. Make the start signal impossible to miss. If you find yourself resisting the action, it is too big. You are still secretly trying to commit to a marathon. Shrink it down. If read a page is too hard, make it read a sentence. If write a paragraph is too hard, make it open the document. You cannot possess a habit until you can start it on your worst day. If you find yourself feeling empty after a session, you are skipping the reward and the hook. You are treating studying as a chore to be survived rather than a loop to be closed. You must force yourself to do the ending ritual. It is the bridge to tomorrow. The shift to need. When you run this loop consistently, cue, tiny action, reward, hook, something chemical starts to change. At first, the good outcome is simply that you start. You stop fighting the daily war of motivation. You hear the alarm, you turn on the lamp, and you are working before you have time to complain. But soon, you hit the excellent outcome. You start to feel an emotional attachment to the ritual. You feel a sense of order and control when the loop is running. You start to protect that time slot because it is the one time of day when you feel completely in charge of your own brain. Finally, you reach the best outcome, the craving. This happens when you miss a day. You will feel a physical itch. You will feel like you forgot to brush your teeth. Your brain will say, "Wait, we didn't do the thing. We didn't close the loop." This is not guilt. It is a craving for the rhythm you have built. You will find yourself wanting to get back to your desk, not because you love the subject matter, but because you love the loop. The engine needs fuel. You now have the wiring fixed. You have the noise turned down. You have the ignition switch installed. You can start on command, and you can sit still without climbing the walls. But starting is only the first step. Once the engine is running, you need to keep it moving. You need to know how to sustain that focus for 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour. You need to know how to stop looking at the clock and wondering when it will be over. You need a way to measure your movement that doesn't feel like a judgment. You need to turn the invisible passage of time into something you can see, touch, and stack. You need to learn the art of the microscopic victory. Chapter 5, Tiny Wins. You are staring at a mountain. It might be a textbook that weighs 3 pounds, a syllabus that looks like a legal contract, or a dissertation that currently consists of a blank white screen. You look at the summit, the finished exam, the completed degree, the mastery of a new language, and then you look at where you are standing. The distance between here and there is terrifying. Your brain calculates the energy required to cross that gap, and it screams at you to stop. It triggers a flood of anxiety that feels like physical weight. You decide to wait until you feel ready to tackle the mountain. You tell yourself you need a solid 4-hour block of time to make a dent in it. You wait for the perfect Saturday. You wait for the mood to strike. But the mood never strikes, and the mountain never moves. This paralysis is not a sign that you are incapable. It is a sign that your scope is too wide. You are trying to eat the mountain whole, and your survival instincts are shutting you down to prevent exhaustion. To fix this, we need to stop looking at the summit. We need to stop obsessing over the finish line. We are going to look exclusively at the ground right in front of your feet. We are going to master the art of the tiny win. The psychology of the checkmark. There is a profound difference between having a goal and having proof. A goal is a fantasy. It exists in the future. Proof exists in the present. When you tell yourself, "I'm going to study for 5 hours today," you are creating a massive debt that you have to pay off. If you only study for 3 hours, you feel like a failure. You feel like you defaulted on a loan. This damages your trust in yourself. We need to reverse this economy. We need to move from a debt-based system to an asset-based system. The mechanism we will use is the microblock. This is a unit of time, usually 10 or 15 minutes, where you commit to single tasking. It is short enough that your brain cannot reasonably argue against it. Anyone can focus for 10 minutes. It is a non-threatening amount of time. But the magic is not in the time itself. It is in what happens the second the timer goes off. You are going to record that win. You are going to make a mark on a piece of paper, a tick in a notebook, or fill in a square on a grid. That mark is not just ink. It is a hit of dopamine. It is a signal to your nervous system that says, "I moved forward." Your brain does not distinguish between the size of the victory, only the existence of it. A win is a win. By stacking these tiny visible wins, you build a psychological momentum that is far more powerful than willpower. You stop trying to force yourself to work and start collecting check marks. Rebuilding your broken trust. Think about how many times you have lied to yourself. You promised you would start at noon, and you started at 4. You promised you would finish the chapter, and you quit after 2 pages. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you erode your self-efficacy, the belief that you are the kind of person who can achieve things. You are currently walking around with a reputation in your own mind of being unreliable. The only way to fix a reputation is through consistent, undeniable action. But you cannot rebuild trust with grand gestures. If you owe someone $1 million, telling them you will pay it back tomorrow is a lie. Paying them $10 every single day, without fail, is the start of a new relationship. Tiny wins are your $10 payments. When you set a target of just 2 microblocks for the day, that is only 20 or 30 minutes of work, and you actually do it, you have kept a promise. You look at your tracker and you see 2 filled squares. You think, I said I would do it, and I did. This sounds small, but it is the foundation of everything. You are rewriting your identity. You are shifting from I am a procrastinator to I am a person who shows up. Once you believe you are the kind of person who shows up, the heavy lifting becomes easy. The identity drives the behavior. The visible scoreboard. You cannot manage what you do not measure. If you study for an hour but do not track it, your brain quickly forgets the effort. It dissolves into the vague memory of, I worked a bit. That is not enough to sustain an addiction. We need the effort to be tangible. You need a visual scoreboard. This does not need to be a complex app with graphs and data analytics. In fact, analog is better. Get a sheet of paper. Draw a grid of squares. Each square represents 1 microblock. This grid is your battlefield. It is your bank account. Every time you finish a block, you fill in a square. There is a visceral satisfaction in physically darkening that box. It is a closing of the loop we discussed in the previous chapter. This scoreboard serves 2 purposes. First, it gives you immediate feedback. You see the pile of wins growing in real time. Second, it exposes the truth. You cannot lie to the grid. If the grid is empty, you did not work. If the grid is full, you did. It cuts through the emotional fog of, I feel like I worked hard, and gives you the cold hard data of, I completed 6 blocks. Lies that keep you paralyzed. You are likely resisting this idea because of a few deep-seated myths you have accepted as truth. The loudest one is the belief that if the effort isn't huge, it doesn't count. You think that 10 minutes of studying is pointless when you have an exam covering 500 pages. This is the all-or-nothing trap. You believe that unless you are sprinting, you shouldn't bother walking. But great journeys are not made of sprints. They are made of relentless, steady steps. 10 minutes is infinitely more than 0 minutes. More importantly, 10 minutes often turns into 20, which turns into an hour. The hardest part of a rocket launch is the first few seconds of liftoff. The microblock is designed to get you off the launch pad. Another myth is that tracking is a waste of time. You think you are too busy to color in squares. This is arrogance masking as efficiency. Tracking takes 5 seconds. Those 5 seconds buy you hours of motivation. It is the highest leverage activity you can do. It turns the invisible, mental effort into the visible, a completed grid. Finally, you might think that real geniuses don't need to play these games. You imagine that the top performers in your field just sit down and flow effortlessly into brilliance. You are wrong. High performers are the most obsessive trackers on the planet. They measure everything. They know exactly how many reps, how many words, how many hours. They do not rely on magic. They rely on metrics. Engineering the win. So how do you actually implement this without it becoming another chore? You start by defining your microblock. I recommend 15 minutes. It is long enough to get into a flow, but short enough to not be scary. Get a timer. It can be your phone, in airplane mode, or a simple kitchen timer. Set it for 15 minutes. Your rule is simple. For the next 15 minutes, I do nothing but this one task. If I get distracted, the timer pauses. I only get to fill the square if I complete the time. When the timer rings, you stop. You immediately fill in the square on your grid. This is the crucial moment. Take a second to look at that filled square and feel the pride. That is your payment. Then you have a choice. You can take a break, or you can reset the timer and go again. Here is the trick. Set your daily goal ridiculously low. Aim for 2 blocks. Just 2. If you do 2 blocks, you have won the day. You are successful. Anything beyond that is extra credit. By lowering the bar, you ensure that you win every single day. Success breeds success. If you set the bar at 4 hours and you only do 3, you feel like a loser. If you set the bar at 30 minutes and you do 3 hours, you feel like a god. We want you to feel like a god. The just one block negotiation. There will be days when you feel like garbage. You will be tired, stressed, and your brain will be screaming for Netflix. The idea of studying will feel repulsive. On these days, you do not try to be a hero. You use the just one block rule. You make a deal with yourself. You say, I am allowed to quit guilt-free as long as I do just one single microblock. You can do anything for 15 minutes. You can suffer through 15 minutes of anything. So you sit down, you start the timer, and you do the work. A strange thing will happen about 12 minutes in. The resistance will vanish. You will realize that the work isn't actually that hard. The idea of the work was hard. When the timer goes off, you will often find yourself thinking, well, I'm already here. I might as well do one more. This is how you cheat the system. You lower the entry cost so much that you slip past your own defenses. And even if you do stop after one block, you have still maintained the habit. You have still filled a square. You have not broken the chain. From momentum to addiction. As you stack these tiny wins, you will move through 3 phases. First, you will have proof of progress. You will look at your tracker after a week and see a visual representation of your effort. You will realize that you are not lazy, you just lacked a system. Next, you will feel momentum. The friction of starting will disappear. You will sit down and reach for the timer automatically. You will start to enjoy the process of filling the squares. You will start to challenge yourself. Can I get 4 blocks today? Can I get 6? Finally, you will become addicted to progress. This is the best outcome. You will crave the feeling of the win. You will feel off balance if you haven't earned your check mark for the day. The dopamine hit of the visual progress becomes more powerful than the dopamine hit of scrolling social media. You are no longer pushing a boulder. The boulder is rolling downhill, and you are chasing it. Where the system cracks. Be careful of the perfectionist trap. You might have a block where you felt a bit fuzzy, or you spent 2 minutes staring out the window. You might be tempted to say, that didn't count. Don't do that. If you sat there and tried, it counts. If you didn't pick up your phone, it counts. We are rewarding the effort, not the brilliance. If you only reward perfect focus, you will never earn a win, and you will quit. Be generous with your check marks in the beginning. Also, watch out for tracker fatigue. Do not make your grid a work of art. Do not use 5 different colored pens if it slows you down. A sloppy X in black ink is worth more than a beautiful color-coded system that you stopped using because it was too much work. And finally, kill the all-or-nothing mindset. If you miss a day, you have not failed. You have simply missed a data point. The goal is not a perfect streak that lasts until you die. The goal is to be a person who studies. If you miss a day, the rule is simple. Never miss 2. Get back on the horse immediately. 1 missed block is an accident. 2 is a new habit. The atoms of achievement. You now have the fundamental unit of your new life, the microblock. You have the wiring to make it rewarding, the detox to make it bearable, the loop to make it automatic, and the tracker to make it visible. You are collecting atoms of effort. But a pile of atoms is just a pile of dust unless you have a structure to organize them. We need to take these microblocks and arrange them into something bigger. We need to turn this collection of check marks into a narrative, a journey, a conquest. We need to stop just stacking bricks and start building a cathedral. We need to turn your studying into a game where the points actually matter. Chapter 6, Study Game. Think about the last time you got sucked into a video game or a mobile app. You probably spent hours grinding through repetitive tasks, fighting the same enemies, or matching the same colored gems. If someone asked you to do that exact same activity in a spreadsheet for work, you would demand to be paid. You would hate every second of it. But in the game, you did it willingly. You did it for free. You might have even paid for the privilege. Why? Why will a human being spend 40 hours leveling up a digital character, but struggle to spend 40 minutes leveling up their own brain? The answer is not that games are inherently fun and studying is inherently boring. The answer is that games are designed with a feedback loop that hooks your reward system, and studying is usually designed with nothing. A game gives you points, levels, sound effects, and clear progress bars. Studying gives you silence and a vague promise that maybe, in 4 months, you will pass a test. It is time to stop letting game designers have a monopoly on your dopamine. In this chapter, we are going to steal their playbook. We are going to take the psychological hooks that keep you addicted to your phone and wrap them around your textbooks. We are going to turn your education into a game you actually want to win. Hijacking the addiction engine. You need to understand that the addiction you feel toward games and apps is not an accident. It is engineered. There are teams of people whose entire job is to figure out exactly how much feedback you need to keep pressing the button. They use points to give you a sense of value. They use levels to give you a sense of status. They use streaks to make you afraid of stopping. When you apply these same mechanics to studying, something strange happens. The have to turns into want to. I am not saying that gamification will magically make organic chemistry as thrilling as an action movie. That is a lie, but it will change the texture of the work. It shifts your focus from the pain of the effort to the pleasure of the score. When you are chasing a high score, the repetitive grinding doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like the necessary price of the next level. You stop thinking, I have to read this chapter, and start thinking, if I finish this chapter, I unlock level 5. This is how you make boring work engaging. You wrap the dull content in a rewarding structure. You create a layer of metagame on top of the work. The work is the vehicle, the game is the destination. The economy of XP. The foundation of any game is currency. In your study game, the currency is experience points, or XP. In the previous chapter, we established the microblock, that 15-minute unit of focused work. Now we're going to give it a value. Let's say 1 microblock is worth 10 XP. This sounds trivial, but it changes the equation. Now, when you sit down for 15 minutes, you aren't just studying, you are farming XP. You are earning currency. You need to set a daily target. Maybe your goal is 50 XP per day. That is 5 blocks. Now you have a clear win condition for the day. It is not a vague goal like study a lot. It is a binary outcome. Did you hit 50 XP or not? To make it interesting, you should add multipliers. If there is a subject you hate or a time of day you usually struggle with, like early mornings, make those blocks worth double. A 6 a.m. study block is worth 20 XP. A block spent on your hardest subject is worth 15 XP. Now you are incentivizing yourself to tackle the friction. You are paying yourself a premium to do the hard things. The level up. Points are meaningless if they don't lead anywhere. In a game, points lead to levels. Levels lead to status and power. You need to create a leveling system. This is your personal progression bar. Maybe level 1 requires 100 XP. That is 10 blocks of study. When you hit 100 XP, you level up. What happens when you level up? You need a reward. But unlike the micro rewards we discussed earlier, these should be privileges. Maybe reaching level 5 unlocks a guilt-free evening of doing absolutely nothing. Maybe level 10 allows you to buy that new piece of tech you wanted. The key is to celebrate the level up. In a video game, when you level up, the screen flashes, music plays, and you feel powerful. You need to recreate that. When you hit the number Stand up. Acknowledge it. Write level up in your notebook. Feel the progression. You are not the same student you were at level 1. You have more capacity. You have proven more consistency. The cult of the streak. There is a reason why language learning apps and social media platforms are obsessed with streaks. The human brain is terrified of breaking a chain. We are loss-averse creatures. We care more about not losing something we have than gaining something new. Once you have a streak of 10 days where you hit your XP target, that streak becomes an asset. You will find yourself studying at 11 p.m. not because you care about the exam, but because you refuse to let the counter reset to 0. This is a powerful tool, but it can be dangerous. If you rely only on the streak, one bad day can destroy your motivation. We will talk about how to fix that later, but for now, start tracking your consecutive days. Put a big X on the calendar. Watch the chain grow. Let your ego get attached to it. I am the kind of person who hasn't missed a day in 3 weeks. That identity is armor. Missions and boss fights. Grinding for points is good for daily consistency, but you also need big goals. In games, these are quests. Study for the final is a terrible goal. It is vague and terrifying. Complete the Calculus Conquest mission is a game. Break your syllabus down into specific missions. A mission has clear victory conditions. Complete all practice problems in Chapter 4 is a mission. Write the first draft of the essay is a mission. Assign a massive XP bounty to these missions. If a daily block is 10 XP, a mission might be worth 500 XP. Now you have a reason to finish projects, not just put in time. You can even frame exams as boss fights. A boss fight is a test of your skills. You prepare for it, you gear up, and you go in to win. If you pass the exam, you defeat the boss. That drops a huge loot reward, maybe a weekend trip, maybe a concert ticket. Frame the scary events as challenges to be overcome, not executions to be survived. Serious play. I know what some of you are thinking. This is childish. I am an adult. I am studying for a medical board exam or a bar exam. I don't have time for points and levels. This is the myth of seriousness. You think that because the outcome is serious, the process must be miserable. You think that playfulness is the opposite of performance. You are wrong. Look at elite sales teams. They have leaderboards, bells they ring when they close deals, and contests for prizes. Look at the military. They have ribbons, badges, ranks, and medals. These are gamification systems. They are used by the most serious, high-performance organizations on Earth because they work. Gamification is not about pretending the work isn't hard. It is about using human psychology to drive behavior. If treating your PhD dissertation like a role-playing game helps you write 500 words a day, then it is a professional tool, not a toy. Do not let your ego prevent you from using a weapon that works. The paper console. Another myth is that you need a sophisticated app to do this. You search the App Store for gamified to-do list and spend 3 hours setting it up. Do not do this. Complexity kills execution. If you have to open an app, wait for it to load, and navigate 3 menus to log your study time, you won't do it. The best console for your study game is a notebook and a pen. Draw a character sheet on the first page. Name your character. Give yourself a title like the strategist or the architect. Write down your current level and XP. On your daily page, track your points with simple tally marks. It is fast. It is tactile. It never runs out of battery. There is something satisfying about physically writing down your score at the end of the day. It makes it real. The dice roll. Here is a pro tip that leverages the most powerful force in behavioral psychology: variable rewards. If you get the exact same reward every time you do something, your brain eventually gets bored. The dopamine spike decreases. But if the reward is unpredictable, the dopamine spikes go through the roof. This is why gambling is addictive. You can use this. Get a 6-sided die. Tell yourself, if I hit my XP target today, I get to roll the die. Assign rewards to the numbers. 1 and 2 might be nothing, just a good job. 3 and 4 might be a small treat, like a favorite drink or an episode of a show. 5 might be a slightly bigger reward. And 6, Make 6 something great, a purchase you've been holding off on, or ordering takeout from your favorite place. The fact that you might get the 6 keeps you playing. The uncertainty adds a thrill to the end of the day. You are hacking the prediction error in your brain. Seasonal resets. Even the best game gets stale if you play it forever. If you're studying for a year, you might get bored of your point system after 3 months. This is why modern games have seasons. Every few months, they reset the leaderboards and change the rules. You should do the same. Every month or every semester, declare a new season. Change the point values, change the rewards, create a special event week where all points are doubled but the difficulty is higher. If you feel your motivation dipping, do not quit the game. Patch the game, update the rules. You are the designer. If the game isn't fun, change the mechanics. The high score mindset. When you implement this correctly, you will notice a shift. You will wake up and check your score. You will look at a spare 20 minutes before dinner and think, I could squeeze in 1 block and get 10 XP. This is the excellent outcome. You are no longer fighting for survival, you are fighting for a high score. You start to protect your streak like it is a physical object. You start to view difficult assignments as high-value targets rather than burdens. Eventually, you reach the best outcome. The game becomes your reality. You feel a genuine thrill when you level up. You feel a sense of mastery over your own behavior. You are not just a student, you are a player who has figured out the meta. Where players fail. There are traps in this level. The biggest one is over-design. You spend 5 hours making a beautiful chart and 0 hours studying. This is procrastination in a costume. Limit your game design time. Give yourself 30 minutes to set up the rules and then lock them in. You are not allowed to change the rules for at least a week. Play the game, don't just build it. The second trap is cheating. You stare at a page for 15 minutes while daydreaming and you give yourself the points. You know you didn't earn them. If you cheat, the game breaks. The points lose their value. If money was photocopied, it would be worthless. If points are fake, the dopamine stops flowing. You must be a ruthless referee. If you broke focus, you get 0 XP. The strictness gives the points their value. The final trap is the broken streak despair. You miss a day because you were sick or an emergency happened. Your streak of 45 days is gone. You feel crushed, so you quit the entire system. You need a streak insurance policy. Allow yourself 1 life per month. If you miss a day, you can burn your life to keep the streak alive, but you only get 1. This prevents a single bad day from destroying months of progress. The cliffhanger. You now have a system that turns effort into points and progress into power. You have a way to make the daily grind feel like a climb up a leaderboard. But a game is only good if you want to keep playing it tomorrow. Even the best games can be turned off. We need to ensure that when you put the controller down, when you close the book for the night, you are already itching to pick it back up. We need to bridge the gap between game over for today and press start for tomorrow. We need to manipulate the way you end your session so that your brain spends the rest of the night subconsciously working on the next problem. We need to learn the art of the cliffhanger. Chapter 7, Anticipation Edge. You finish a study session, slam the book shut, and think, thank God that is over. You are exhausted. You pushed yourself until your brain felt like mush, and you finally collapsed across the finish line. You feel a momentary sense of relief that you don't have to look at that material again for 24 hours. You walk away, leaving your desk in a state of chaotic disarray, telling yourself you earned a break. You think you just won the day. In reality, you just sabotaged tomorrow. By ending on a note of exhaustion and relief from pain, you have taught your brain a dangerous lesson. Studying is something we survive, not something we enjoy. You have associated the act of learning with the feeling of depletion. When you wake up tomorrow, your brain will remember that feeling. It will look at the desk and predict pain. It will put up walls of resistance that you will have to smash through with sheer willpower. We need to break this cycle. We need to stop treating study sessions as isolated battles and start treating them as episodes in a compelling series. We need to harness the most powerful force in the dopamine system, anticipation. This chapter is about the art of the ending. It is about learning to stop before you are done, leaving the bridge built for tomorrow, and hacking your own curiosity so that you spend your time away from the desk, secretly wanting to go back. The chemistry of next time. To understand why this works, you have to look at how your brain processes rewards. We tend to think that dopamine is released when we get what we want. That is only half the story. The biggest spike of dopamine actually happens when we anticipate the reward. It is the moment before the curtain rises. It is the notification bell, not the message itself. Anticipation is a form of tension. It is a stretched rubber band. Your brain hates unresolved tension and will work hard to resolve it. Think about your favorite TV show. How does every episode end? It ends on a cliffhanger. The hero is trapped, the secret is revealed, the bomb is ticking, the screen goes black. You scream at the TV. You are frustrated, but you are also hooked. You are desperate for the next episode. You do not need willpower to watch the next one. You need restraint to stop yourself from watching it immediately. Now imagine if TV shows ended every episode by resolving every plot line, answering every question, and showing the characters sleeping peacefully for 10 minutes. You would turn it off and never come back. Most people study like that second boring TV show. They try to wrap everything up perfectly. They want closure, but closure is the enemy of craving. If you close the loop completely, there is no tension left to pull you back. We are going to learn to leave the loop open. We are going to engineer a cliffhanger every single day. Stop while you are winning. The biggest mistake you're making is working until you fail. You study until you are confused, until you get a problem wrong, or until you simply cannot read another word. You end on a low note. This creates a recency bias. Your brain remembers the last thing that happened most vividly. If the last thing that happened was frustration or exhaustion, that is the emotional flavor of studying. You need to flip this. You need to stop while you are winning. This is a technique used by some of the most prolific writers in history. They would stop writing in the middle of a sentence. They would stop when they knew exactly what was going to happen next. They would park on a downhill slope. When you are studying and you are in the flow and you just crushed a difficult concept, stop. I know this sounds insane. You want to keep going because it feels good. But if you stop right there, you bottle that feeling of competence. You leave the desk feeling smart, capable, and successful. That is the memory you carry into the rest of the day. More importantly, because you stopped when you knew what to do next, you have a built-in launch pad for tomorrow. You are not facing a blank page. You are finishing a sentence. The Hemingway Bridge. We are going to formalize this into a specific protocol. I call it the Hemingway Bridge, named after the writer who famously used this tactic. The goal is to build a bridge from the end of today's session to the start of tomorrow's, so you never have to swim across the cold water of procrastination. The bridge consists of 3 parts: the stop, the hook, and the preview. First, the stop. As we discussed, you stop midstream. If you're doing math problems, stop halfway through a calculation you know how to finish. If you're writing an essay, stop in the middle of a paragraph where you know the argument. Do not stop at the end of a chapter. Stop in the middle of a page. Second, the hook. This is a physical note you leave for your future self. It is not a to-do list. A to-do list is a list of obligations. A hook is a set of instructions. You write down exactly what the next action is. Finish the calculation for X. Write the sentence about the economic impact. Read the next 3 paragraphs. You leave this note on top of your book or stuck to your laptop screen. It must be the very first thing you see. When you sit down tomorrow, you do not have to make any decisions. You do not have to wonder, what should I do today? The decision has already been made by a smarter, more focused version of you, the you from yesterday. You just follow the instruction. The mental preview ritual. The third part of the bridge happens in your mind. Before you walk away from the desk, take 60 seconds to run a simulation. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself walking into the room tomorrow. Visualize yourself sitting down. Visualize reading the hook. Visualize doing that first tiny task and finishing it. Feel the satisfaction of that completion. This is a preload of dopamine. You are priming your neural pathways to expect success. You are telling your brain, this is what we are going to do, and it is going to feel good. This sounds like a small thing, but it destroys anxiety. Anxiety is usually just fear of the unknown. By visualizing the start, you make it known. You make it familiar. When you walk in tomorrow, your brain will feel like it has already been there. The resistance will be gone. Curiosity as a weapon. Beyond the mechanics of the bridge, you want to cultivate a state of active curiosity. Usually, when we study, we treat questions as annoyances. We just want the answers so we can pass the test. But questions are the hooks that keep the brain engaged. Keep a curiosity list on the side of your desk. When you are reading and you come across something that doesn't make sense, or a concept that seems weirdly interesting, or a connection to another topic, do not stop to investigate it right then. That breaks your flow. Instead, jot it down on the curiosity list. Why does this formula work like that? How does this connect to what I learned last week? Use these questions as hooks for future sessions. A question is an open loop. Your brain wants to close it. If you start a session by trying to answer a specific, interesting question from your list, you are starting with a treasure hunt instead of a chore. You are pulling on a thread rather than pushing a boulder. The last 3 minutes rule. To make this consistent, you need to protect the end of your session. Most people work right up to the last second and then run away. You need to implement the last 3 minutes rule. When your time is almost up, you stop consuming new information. You shift into bridge mode. Spend the last 3 minutes tidying your workspace. Organize your notes. Write your hook. Do your visualization. This is a closing ceremony. It signals to your brain that the work is done and that you are in control. If you leave your desk in chaos, you will dread coming back to it. If you leave it organized, with a clear note waiting for you, you will feel a subtle pull to return. You are setting the table for the next feast. When you get stuck, there is a common fear. What if I end the session because I'm stuck? I can't leave on a high note if I don't understand anything. This is where the strategy saves you. If you are stuck and you are confused and the time is up, do not keep grinding until you are miserable. Stop. But do not just walk away in defeat. Use the hook to frame the problem. Write down exactly what you are confused about. I understand step 1 and 2, but step 3 makes no sense because of X. By defining the confusion, you take power over it. You turn a vague feeling of stupidity into a specific problem to be solved. Your hook for tomorrow becomes figure out step 3. Often, your brain will work on this problem in the background while you are away. This is the diffuse mode of thinking. You might be washing dishes or walking the dog, and suddenly the answer will pop into your head. This only happens if you have clearly defined the problem before you walked away. If you just rage quit, your brain drops the subject. If you define the cliffhanger, your brain keeps working on the script. The pull of the narrative. When you combine all of these elements, the cliffhanger stops, the specific hooks, the visualization, the curiosity list, you change the narrative of your studying. It stops being a series of disconnected, painful tasks. It becomes a continuous thread. You are weaving a story of mastery. You will start to feel a strange sensation when you are away from your desk. You will find yourself thinking about the hook. You will wonder about the items on your curiosity list. You will feel a low-level magnetic pull to get back to the game, to earn the points, to close the loop, to finish the cliffhanger. This is the anticipation edge. It is the difference between the student who has to drag themselves to the library and the student who walks there with purpose. One is fighting a headwind. The other is sailing with a tailwind. The missing piece. You have come a long way. You understand the wiring of your reward system. You know how to detox from the noise. You have built a loop to start automatically. You are stacking tiny wins and playing a game for points. And now you know how to end each session so that you crave the next one. You have all the components of a high-performance machine. You have the engine, the fuel, the ignition, and the steering. But a pile of parts is not a car, and a car is useless without a map. You have the tools to study for an hour or a day, but how do you string those days together into a week? How do you handle the inevitable bad days where everything falls apart? How do you move from the initial excitement of this new system to a permanent state of high performance? You need a timeline. You need a structure that tells you exactly what to do in week 1, week 2, and week 3. You need to know how to handle the withdrawal symptoms, how to ride the momentum, and how to bulletproof yourself against relapse. You don't just need a collection of tips, you need a protocol. Chapter 8, Study Protocol. You have the parts. Over the last 7 chapters, we have dismantled the machinery of your motivation and laid the components out on the floor. You have the ignition switch, craving loop, the fuel filter, stimulus detox, the dashboard, tiny wins, the engine, reward wiring, and the steering, anticipation edge. But a garage full of high-performance parts is not a car. You cannot drive a pile of pistons and gears. You have to assemble them. And more importantly, you have to know the order of operations. You cannot install the roof before you build the frame. This is where most people fail. They read a book like this, get excited, and try to do everything at once. They try to detox, gamify, track, visualize, and loop all on day 1. They last about 72 hours before they crash and burn, overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of the change. We are not going to make that mistake. We're going to build this system layer by layer. We are going to turn these concepts into a concrete timeline, a protocol. This is your roadmap from the chaos of distraction to the stability of addiction. It is not a suggestion, it is a sequence. The architecture of change. Before we look at the weeks ahead, you need to understand the terrain. Real behavior change does not look like a straight line going up. It looks like a J-curve. At the beginning, things often get harder, not easier. This is the withdrawal phase. You are taking away your brain's favorite toys, constant stimulation, and replacing them with work. Your brain will protest. If you do not expect this, you will interpret the struggle as failure. You will think, this isn't working. But if you have a map, you know that the struggle is just the terrain of week 1. You stop judging yourself for finding it hard, and you start judging yourself on your adherence to the plan. This protocol is designed to move you through 4 distinct phases: withdrawal, momentum, stabilization, and relapse proofing. We are going to install the habits in a specific order so that each one supports the next. We are moving from survival to thriving. Phase 1, the Great Reset, weeks 1 to 2. The goal of the first 2 weeks is not high performance. The goal is physiological reset. We are trying to lower your boredom ceiling and install the basic ignition switch. If you try to gamify your studying right now with complex point systems, you will fail. Your brain is too noisy. You cannot hear the game. For the first 14 days, your focus is entirely on 2 things: stimulus detox and the basic loop. You must identify 1 or 2 high-stimulation habits that are destroying your attention span. Maybe it is scrolling in bed or playing video games before dinner, and restrict them. At the same time, you implement the micro-detox we discussed in Chapter 3. Every single time you sit down to study, you must pay the toll of 10 to 15 minutes of silence. This will be painful. You will feel agitated. That is the point. You are breaking the dependency. Once the silence is done, you run a stripped-down version of the craving loop from Chapter 4. Cue, time, place, tiny action, 2 minutes, reward, check the box. Do not worry about studying for hours. Do not worry about deep work. Just prove to yourself that you can sit in silence, start the loop, and close it. If you do that for 14 days, you have laid the foundation. You have cleared the swamp so we can build the castle. Phase 2, the engine roars, weeks 3 to 4. By week 3, the agitation from the detox should be subsiding. Your brain is no longer screaming for constant input. The silence feels less like a punishment and more like a relief. Now, we add the fuel. This is the momentum phase. Now we bring in the tiny wins and the study game. You are already showing up because of the loop. Now we need to make you stay. Introduce the visual tracker. Break your time into 15-minute micro blocks and start filling in the grid. This visual proof is intoxicating once you have the focus to appreciate it. At the same time, launch your game. Assign points to those blocks. Set a daily target. If you want to add the dice roll reward system, do it now. Your brain is sensitive enough to appreciate these dopamine hits. Finally, start using the anticipation edge, Chapter 7. Begin ending your sessions with the cliffhanger and the hook. You are no longer just surviving the session, you are setting up tomorrow. During this phase, you will feel a surge of energy. You will see your tracker filling up. You will feel the click of the game. Ride this wave. This is where the addiction starts to take root. You are moving from I have to do this to I want to get my points. Phase 3, weeks 5 to 6. There is a danger in the momentum phase, complexity creep. You might get so obsessed with the game and the points that the system becomes a burden. Weeks 5 and 6 are about stabilization. We're going to sand down the rough edges. Look at your system. Is the game too complicated? Are you spending more time tracking than studying? If so, simplify. Cut the rules that you aren't using. We want a system that is sleek and aerodynamic. The goal here is to make the habit boring. I mean that in the best possible way. We want studying to become as automatic and unemotional as brushing your teeth. You don't need a pep talk to brush your teeth. You just do it. During this phase, focus on consistency of the time slot. Protect your study window with your life. It is no longer a game you are playing. It is a part of who you are. The novelty wears off, and that is good. Novelty is volatile. Habit is stable. We want you to reach a point where it feels weird not to study. Phase 4, the safety net, week 7 and beyond. You will have a bad day. You will get sick, or have a breakup, or just wake up feeling like the world is ending. You will miss a day. Then you might miss 2. This is the critical moment. Most people view this as the end. I fell off the wagon, they say, and then they burn the wagon. Phase 4 is about relapse proofing. We are going to build a floor so you cannot fall into the basement. You need to define your minimum viable session. On your absolute worst day, when you have zero energy, what is the bare minimum you must do to keep the habit alive? It might be one single microblock. Just 15 minutes. Write a re-entry script. This is a set of instructions for when you have missed a few days. It should be simple. If I miss 2 days, I immediately do a 5-minute detox and a 10-minute study block, and I reward myself with X. The goal of this phase is to shorten the recovery time. Amateurs crash for months. Pros crash for a day. By having a protocol for failure, you remove the shame. You stop asking, what is wrong with me, and start asking, which step of the re-entry script am I on? Lies that sabotage the timeline. As you move through these phases, your brain will try to trick you. It will whisper lies to get you to abandon the protocol. The first lie is the speed myth. You will want results immediately. You will do the detox for 2 days and ask, why am I not a genius yet? You have to remember that biological rewiring takes time. You cannot rush a harvest. If you pull up the plant to check the roots, you kill it. Trust the phases. Slowness is not failure, it is stability. The second lie is the zero-sum myth. You will think that if you slip up in week 3, you have to go back to week 1. This is false. If you trip while walking up a mountain, you don't roll all the way to the bottom. You just stand up. You still have the elevation you gained. You still know how to detox. You still know how to run a loop. Do not restart the protocol. Just resume it. The third lie is the rigidity myth. You might think, my schedule is too crazy for a protocol. Structure creates freedom. By having a plan, you stop wasting energy deciding what to do. Adapt the phases to your life, but do not abandon the principles. If you can't do a 15-minute detox, do 5, but do the detox. the scientist in the lab. I want you to change the way you look at yourself. Stop looking at yourself as a flawed human being trying to be better. Start looking at yourself as a scientist running an experiment. You are the subject and you are the researcher. Every week, you need to do a review. Take 10 minutes on Sunday. Look at your data. Look at your tracker. Ask 3 questions. 1. What worked this week? 2. What broke? 3. What is one small tweak I can make for next week? Maybe you realize that studying in the kitchen is impossible because of the noise. Fine, that is data. Move to the bedroom. Maybe you realize that 10 XP is too low and you aren't motivated. Fine, raise it to 20. This experimental mindset protects your ego. If an experiment fails, it doesn't mean the scientist is bad. It just means the hypothesis was wrong. You adjust the variables and run it again. You are building a custom suit. It will require fittings. The danger of the all-in. I cannot stress this enough. Do not try to be a hero in week 1. The biggest cause of failure is ambition without foundation. You try to do a full digital detox, study for 4 hours a day, and run a complex game all at once. You will burn out. You will rebound into a binge of Netflix and self-loathing. Respect the withdrawal phase. It is there for a reason. It is the detox ward. You don't ask a patient in detox to run a marathon. You ask them to get well. Focus on the primary task of the phase you are in. If you are in phase 1, your only job is to get comfortable with silence and start the loop. If you do that, you are winning. Do not worry about the scoreboard yet. The scoreboard comes later. The living system. This protocol is not a prison. It is a living system. As you get stronger, the system should evolve. In 6 months, you might not need the tracker anymore. The habit might be so ingrained that you just do it. That is fine. Drop the tracker. Or maybe you need to make the game harder because you are leveling up too fast. Great. Change the rules. The goal is not to serve the protocol. The protocol serves you. It is a scaffolding. When the building is finished, you can take the scaffolding down, but do not take it down while you are still pouring the concrete. Beyond the horizon. If you follow this roadmap, if you endure the withdrawal, build the momentum, stabilize the habit, and plan for the crash, you will arrive at a place that currently seems impossible. You will wake up, and studying will not be a source of dread. It will be a source of stability. It will be the anchor of your day. You will feel a sense of control over your mind that bleeds into everything else you do. But there is one final shift we need to make. Right now, we are focused on the mechanics of the habit. We are focused on the how. To truly lock this in for decades, to make it a permanent part of your soul, we need to talk about the who. We need to talk about identity. We need to talk about what happens when this stops being something you do and starts being someone you are. We need to look at how this new addiction creates a competitive advantage that will separate you from the pack for the rest of your life. We need to talk about the lifelong craving. Chapter 9, Lifelong Craving. You are now holding a loaded weapon. Over the last 8 chapters, we have taken apart the machinery of your mind. We looked at the wires, the gears, and the fuel lines. We identified exactly why you were stalling out, why the modern world was designed to keep you distracted, and how to rebuild your engine from the ground up. You might think you just read a book about how to study better. You didn't. You read a manual on how to reclaim your own consciousness. If you apply what you have learned, you are no longer just a student trying to pass a test. You are a threat. You are a competitor in an economy where almost everyone else is asleep at the wheel. While the rest of the world is drowning in a sea of notifications, scrolling through infinite feeds, and losing the ability to hold a thought for more than 30 seconds, you have built a sanctuary. You have learned how to turn the noise down and the focus up. You have learned how to crave the hard things. This final chapter is not about how to get an A on your next exam. It's about what happens after the exam. It's about what happens when you take this system, this addiction to progress, and apply it to the rest of your life. We are going to zoom out and look at the empire you can build on the foundation of a rewired brain. The architect of your own mind. Let's look at the person you were when you started Chapter 1 versus the person you are now. The old you believed that focus was a personality trait. You thought you were either born with discipline or you weren't. You thought that if you couldn't stop checking your phone, it was because you were weak. Now you know the truth. You know that your attention is shaped by reward wiring, not moral worth. You understand that the reason you couldn't focus was simply that your boredom ceiling was too high. You were trying to listen to a whisper in a thunderstorm. You now have the tools to change that. You know how to use stimulus detox to lower the volume of the world. You know how to use the craving loop to bypass your hesitation and start automatically. You know how to stack tiny wins to build momentum, how to play the study game to keep your dopamine firing, and how to use the anticipation edge to make tomorrow easier than today. You have a protocol. You are not guessing anymore. You are not waiting for inspiration. You are an architect who knows exactly how to build a skyscraper of knowledge, one brick at a time. The unfair advantage. We live in the attention economy. This means that the ability to focus is the new IQ. It is the new currency. If you look around your classroom, your office, or your coffee shop, you will see people who are physically present but mentally gone. They are owned by their algorithms. They cannot learn complex skills because they cannot sit still long enough to push through the confusion. They are trapped in the shallows. By mastering the art of the craving, you give yourself a massive strategic advantage. When you can sit down for 3 hours of deep, uninterrupted work, you can learn things in a month that take others a year. You can master hard skills, coding, languages, advanced mathematics, strategic writing, while others are just dabbling. This control gives you a quiet, unshakable confidence. You no longer have to fear a difficult syllabus or a demanding boss. You know that whatever the challenge is, you have a system that can devour it. You shift from the anxiety of "I can't focus" to the certainty of "I know how to design focus." You become the person who can execute, and in a distracted world, the person who executes is the person who wins. The ripple effect on your life. This transformation does not stop at your desk. It bleeds into everything. Think about your relationships. How much of your stress comes from procrastination? How many times have you snapped at a partner or a parent because you were panicked about a deadline you ignored? How many times have you been physically with your friends but mentally checking your phone because your reward tolerance was broken? When you fix your study habits, you fix your presence. You show up calmer. You are not carrying the heavy backpack of guilt everywhere you go. When you say you are done for the day, you are actually done. You can sit and listen to a friend without itching for a dopamine hit. You also earn respect. People notice reliability. When you say, "I am going to work on this for 2 hours," and then you actually do it, people trust you. Your professors, your colleagues, and your family start to see you as a person of substance. You become the anchor in the storm. You inspire the people around you not by preaching to them, but by modeling what a focused life looks like. You become proof that it is possible to escape the chaos. The impossible becomes routine. Think about the projects you gave up on because they felt too big. Maybe you wanted to learn Japanese. Maybe you wanted to write a novel. Maybe you wanted to get into medical school. The old you looked at the mountain and froze. The new you looks at the mountain and sees a series of microblocks. You now have the ability to tackle long-term projects without fear. You know that you do not need to sprint up the mountain, you just need to run the loop. You need to hit your XP target. You need to leave a hook for tomorrow. This allows you to reinvent yourself whenever you need to. The economy is changing fast. The skills that are valuable today might be obsolete in 10 years. The only skill that will never be obsolete is the ability to learn hard things quickly. You have that skill now. You have a learning engine that you can point at any target. If you need to become a data scientist, you can do it. If you need to learn public speaking, you can do it. You are no longer defined by what you already know. You are defined by what you are capable of learning. The flywheel of genius. Here's the best part. It gets easier. Right now, you're pushing the flywheel. It takes effort to run the protocol. But as you continue, two things happen. First, the habit reduces the friction. The neural pathways for your craving loop get thicker and faster. Deciding to study becomes automatic. You stop negotiating with yourself. You just see the cue and do the action. You accumulate thousands of hours of practice without the emotional drain that used to accompany every single minute. Second, knowledge compounds. This is the secret of the genius. When you learn a new concept, it connects to the concepts you already know. The more you know, the more hooks you have to catch new information. Learning becomes faster, sharper, and more creative. You start to see patterns that others miss. You start to make connections that seem like magic to outsiders, but are really just the result of a well-fed brain. You are building a living system. As you grow, your system will grow. You will upgrade your games, refine your loops, and tighten your protocols. You are not just building a study habit, you are building a high-performance life. The first brick. We are at the end of the theory. Now we are at the beginning of the reality. You can close this book and feel good about the ideas you read. You can nod your head and say, that makes sense. You can put it on the shelf and go back to scrolling through your phone, telling yourself you will start someday. Or you can act. I want you to take the first step right now. Do not wait for Monday. Do not wait for the perfect mood. Choose your first Crave It session. Pick a time in the next 24 hours. It doesn't have to be long. 15 minutes is enough. Decide where you will sit. Decide exactly what you will work on. Set up one simple loop. Define the cue. When I put my phone in the drawer. Define the tiny action. I will read one page. Define the reward. I will mark a big X on a piece of paper. Make it official. Get a pen and write a declaration to yourself. Write, today I start rewiring my cravings. Put that note where you will see it. The fork in the road. You are standing at a fork in the road. Down one path lies your old life. It is a comfortable path. It is filled with the easy dopamine of endless entertainment. It is filled with the numbness of scrolling and the sharp, sudden panic of deadlines. It is a path where you drift, where your potential slowly evaporates, where you look back in 10 years and wonder what you could have done if you had just been able to focus. Down the other path lies something different. It is quieter. It requires effort. It requires you to sit through the agitation of the detox and the friction of the start. But on this path, you are in control. On this path, you are powerful. On this path, you wake up every day knowing that you can direct your mind like a laser beam. You build things, you learn things, you become the person you always knew you could be. You are early to this. Most people will never figure this out. They will spend their lives fighting their own brains, wondering why everything feels so hard. You have the code. You have the key. The door is open. The loop is waiting. You are the kind of person who craves learning now. Prove it.